Hello and welcome back to my airline on AirlineSim, and it's not British Atlantic Airways, it's actually Global Freightways, which is my new cargo airline. And I'm very, very happy to introduce you to its first week of operations. So, just a little bit of a background. I set up the Atlantic Group, which is under British Atlantic Airways. British Atlantic Airways is still running. It's still the parent company of this whole thing, and it has very much been funding Global Freightways' rapid expansion, which I'll show you in a second. So I'll set up the Atlantic Group, which is in Bermuda, and this is going to act as the sort of holding company for all my cargo airlines, which I plan to have a few. Global Freightways will be the main airline. It'll be the FedEx, it'll be the UPS, it will be the DHL, and I'm going to have smaller airlines running much smaller planes, sort of like the Cessnas, the ATRs, those sort of things, based around the world, sort of feeding into sort of mini hubs around the world. Well, that's the plan anyway. So let me go to Global Freightways. So I did decide to set it up in Bermuda, and for definitely not to avoid taxes or have low salaries for staff. Definitely didn't do that. But I did that, and as you can see on the cargo potential hubs, I was looking at all these hubs here. I was thinking about Shanghai, I was thinking about Liège in Europe, but in the end there was really only one airport that I was ever going to set up in, and one country I was always going to focus on, and that was America. And the airport that I chose was UPS's Louisville, and the reason I did that. So this is the Louisville Stansford. It's actually called Muhammad Ali Airport in real life, which is really cool. Another reason why I chose the airport. But there was no other airlines, cargo airlines, operating. So in America, there's obviously this sort of quadruple sort of central area of America, which has all the main cargo hubs, and obviously it's just because of location that they're there. You have Memphis, which is FedEx's hub in real life, or their main hub anyway, and All Japan Airways has got a hub there, so that's not his passenger airline, that's his cargo airline. You've got Hexa Cargo, this new airline called Flying Bear Line 2. I'm actually talking to the player on Discord who's running this airline. So even though there was a lot of slots left at Memphis, it was actually quite busy. Cincinnati is the mega hub of PK World Cargo. I'm not going to compete with him at Cincinnati. Indianapolis, I did take a look at, but there was these two other airlines here, and it has less demand. So in the end, I chose Louisville Stansford as my main hub, and got to work building the airline. So I set up the airline with 70 million, and I think on the first day, I think I had about 50 planes, and it was about 15 Boeing 737s that were from the market, a couple of Boeing 767s, and then for my feeder plane, my main feeder plane, I decided on the Dash 8s because they're faster, which means they have slightly more range than the ATRs. But yeah, so I had about 40 to 50 planes when I was setting up my Louisville hub. So when I was setting up my Louisville hub, I decided to do... Now, as I said in my previous episode, I had to really think. This is the most amount of brain power I have put into any network of any airline I've ever had on this save. Every flight, and I'll show you a bit later what I mean by this. I'm not just talking about all the flights running through the hubs. As you can see, I've got a few hubs. I'll go into them in a second. I'm talking about random flights. Every flight connects to something. And that was my whole sort of feeling about it. And it had to be a proper, network of going from east to west, west to east, and back, and all that sort. So I set up at Louisville with 2 waves. Now, ignore the times on this. This is done in UTC. Obviously, it's actually 11 o'clock at night and like 4 o'clock in the morning. Those there. But as you can see, I've got 2 main waves and a few other flights just dotted around coming in from other hubs. Those are. So basically, so you see this here. So I started off with this wave here. So this is East Coast and South. So sort of anywhere from here down to sort of Florida, down this coast, comes in for 11 o'clock at night, even though it does say on here it's 8 o'clock. I think, 6 o'clock. It's not. It's 11 o'clock. I'll show you later. But it comes in, and then it all goes either back south or all over to the west coast. So all of these. So basically, it's one big connection, and then it goes the other way on the other wave, basically. So it just sort of goes back to itself. So I've got 2 waves. It all goes out, and then it all goes out. Then they wait for 12 hours, and they come all the way back in, and then like that. So that's how I did it, and it worked. Probably my most brilliant networking I've ever done. Let me show you some connections. So let's do. Hang on, what's a good airport to show you? Let's do Hartford. No, you know what? No, I'll do Boston. Boston in for Louisville. And yeah, it was one of the first flights I did. So you see here, 737. This is Freightways 7. And these are all the connections possible through Louisville for this flight. So cargo gets picked up in Boston, flies to Louisville, and then it can connect onwards to any of these flights here. So as you can see here, this is Freightways 48, Freightways 12, Freightways 66, 84, so on. And if I keep scrolling and keep scrolling, and that is the size of the current wave that it's got. Salt Lake City, Denver, San Diego, Alliance, Fort Worth, Houston, Miami, Calgary, Anchorage, Dallas, Mexico City, Portland, Oakland, Los Angeles, Cincinnati, Kansas, Lakeland, Tampa. Literally nearly every single major airport with some sort of cargo demand can be connected from Boston through Louisville on this flight. Literally, there's not many airports I've missed on that list, basically. And it's the same for the other way round. So if I do this morning flight here, so let's go LAX, coming in for 10 o'clock here. If I'll show you here, and look at that. That's how many flights. And as you can see, the difference on this one is it's like Charlotte, it's like Atlanta, it's like Philadelphia, it's Baltimore, it's Washington. It's flights going the other way. It's flights going this way and down. So cargo has 2 ways that get across the country with me through my Louisville hub. Now, this worked brilliantly. I had about 40 planes, I think. It was working really well. Flights were filling up. However, I wasn't making much money. If I was making a profit, it was weird. it was 1%. It was like that, and most flights lost money. And I realised it was because the planes were sitting on the deck for 12 hours. So, for example, that Boston flight would have come in here. It would have probably gone over to, let's say, Denver. And then it would have sat on the deck for Denver for 12 hours and come back in. And this was, and then it would wait, then it would go over back up to Boston, and then it would wait 12 hours in Boston and then come back. So as you can see here, massive gaps. So that's what, 4 to, yeah, so it's like 12 hours. It's like half the day. It's these planes were sat around not making any money. And you know, what's it called, like scale of production or whatever it's called in business? I can't quite remember. It's late when I'm filming this. It's late. Scales of production? I can't remember what it's called. But you know, like the more you use something, or the more you produce something, or the more you do something with that asset, the lower the cost of that asset becomes. So like lower, so for example, leasing rates and stuff like that. If I'm using that flight 10 times, the leasing rate for that flight is actually like a tenth of what it'd be if I only did one flight. So I decided, well, I need to hub at a new airport in the middle. I didn't want to do Louisville again because honestly, that gets messy per plane. Because really, you can only do 3 waves. You'd probably only get another wave in the middle here before all the planes just can't fly that much. So I had a look around, and honestly, when I say a massive part of the enjoyment of this airline has been so far is how my other hubs have organically grown out of my network, it is this. So as you can see here, these are all the routes, the green lines, that's self-explanatory. But as you can see up here, I've got another hub up here. And this is located perfectly for when planes are sat on the deck over here for 12 hours, they go in here. And then I've created a new hub at Chicago Rockford Airport. Now, I'll be lying if I said I knew anything about Chicago Rockford Airport before this airline, but I was looking around for an airport sort that wasn't too far away. I looked at Dallas. I looked at doing a Memphis hub next to it, but I thought, why would I do that when I've got Louisville there? I was looking at Dallas. I was looking at Atlanta. I looked at Philadelphia. I even looked at sort of Dayton and Toledo, but obviously this airport here was just screaming at me. And I wanted an airport, as I said, in the local area, sort of not too far away, so it could go in and out of those 12 hours and hub. It wasn't a major airport, so it wasn't Chicago O'Hare, it wasn't Dallas Fort Worth, it wasn't Atlanta, it wasn't a Philadelphia or New York, like that, because you're competing with belly cargo at those airports. So every single flight that goes out, passenger airlines are doing belly freight. And quite often, passenger airlines will undercut the prices of the cargo because the costs are offset by their passenger cabins. So I didn't want an airport like that. And I saw Chicago Rockford, and it's got 7 bar demand, 45 minutes transfer time, which is brilliant. You know, the quicker you can get cargo over across the country, the better. Located in this sort of northwestern America, and I looked into the airport. I barely heard about it. I did some research online. I did Wikipedia articles. I did everything that I usually do. It's also a UPS hub. Excuse me, and it is quite a busy one as well. So what I did was I went into all my planes that was at Louisville. and I started adding these flights to Rockford. So these, where I've got RFD in the notes, are flights that go to Rockford as well. So let me show you, I don't know, let me just pick this one, right? So you see here, so this one here, so let me go to the flight plan here. So this is the main Stanford. So it goes from Allentown, I think this is, into Louisville here for the 11 o'clock wave. And then it goes out from Louisville to Indianapolis. Then Indianapolis into the 3 to 4 p.m. Rockford hub. All right, so let's go to Indianapolis to Rockford. So it's not really filling up that well, but let's go Indianapolis to Rockford here. Look at that, making a profit. 62 of the 81 cargo units on this flight is connecting through Rockford. All right, and then it's also coming to Rockford later in the sort of the afternoon hub. Wave at Rockford. So if I do Rockford to Allentown here, 52 have come through, making a profit, right? So I started doing all this, and because my waves are already going, east to west, it naturally made these routes here west to east, east to west, like that. So it went the opposite way around. So when a flight was sat at Kansas, for example, for 12 hours, nope, it flew into there and then connected over here. And all of a sudden, so let me show you Philadelphia to Rockford. Look at the connections there. Now, don't get me wrong, not as big as my Louisville. It's never going to be as big as my Louisville. But yeah, you can see there. It's got Phoenix, Los Angeles, Ontario, Anchorage, Spokane, Boise, and Chicago, and Sioux Falls, and yeah. So it's basically created this sort of reliever hub, secondary hub, sort of northwestern hub. And what makes me so happy with it is it just sort of organically came out of my Louisville hub, right? And it just makes me feel so happy. It was just such a means to an end that thoroughly enjoyable setting my Rockford. I almost like my Rockford hub more than I do my Louisville hub. Like for example, where's my 767 here? So this 767 does Memphis to Rockford early afternoon. 338 cargo units being connected through Rockford. It's just so pleasant for me to set up the Rockford. So yeah, so if you see the notes here, any ones with RFD are Rockford. Now, I have done smaller versions at an airport called Lakeford in Florida and Toledo as well, sometimes when there's too many flights going into, or the flights are either too long to connect into the Rockford waves, or they're slightly too short, or whatever. I've done to Toledo and Alliance Fort Worth. There's another one I'm thinking of, which Alliance Fort Worth is basically next to Dallas Fort Worth here. And again, is a cargo hub airport, just has cargo, no passengers. Not working out that great. But yeah, so now the Rockford hub did have a dodgy start. I had to actually start basing planes at Rockford to get those connection starts going. But when I was saying to you that every route matters, this was what I was on about. Was sort of using these 11. So this is my Rockford post fleet. These are just purely based out of Rockford. These don't touch Louisville. Like I just set that one up today. So for example, Ontario here to Rockford, Louisville, Stansford. This is one I've got to review. So this is the other thing. It is not perfect. I still have a lot to review on in terms of flights. I mean, this is just dreadful. This is a review schedule flight as well, but most flights are like this. You just sort of seen some of the bad ones there. Now, the only other sort of hub that I need to talk to you about is my West Coast hub. Now, I made a mistake. I started out as San Bernardino, and then I realised there's no transfers possible. So I quickly switched over to Ontario, and using the same formula as my Rockford and Louisville. So it's more sort of north and south. This one, so it goes sort of from the south up, from over here, and then goes up. And then when they're sat on the ground for 12 hours, they actually go to San Bernardino and back, because the amount of demand at San Bernardino, I think it may be the airport I have the most load factor at. Yeah, 94% of my flights are full there. So I just continued it. I just assumed that it was filling up. But as you can see, Ontario is my third hub, and it is literally acting as my sort of West Coast hub. I do need to boost it up a little bit and make it a little bit better. I need flights to Anchorage. I need flights from Seattle and Portland down here, and all that lot. But obviously, that will come in due course. And when I say that every flight connects to at least one other flight, I mean it. So there'll be flights from here into Denver, then going into Louisville, but there'll be a connection here, there'll be a connection here, there'll be a connection here, a connection in Albuquerque. And I mean, I went through every single flight and I made sure they connected with each other. And it's a massive part of why I think they're successful. Let me see if I can show you this in action. Let's have a look at Denver. I think Denver's going to be a good one. So Denver to Rockford. So this is the next flight. Coming into Rockford for the 3 a.m. hub. Yeah, here we go. So I don't hub at Denver. Like I don't have a hub there. I probably have only a few handful of flights there from maybe Ontario, Louisville, maybe Alliance Fort Worth, maybe Oakland, something like that. I only have a few flights into Denver, but I've made sure that it connects this flight to Rockford. So 36 of this 90 has come from my own feeder at Denver, which means I've had a flight, and I think it's my Ontario flight, I seem to remember, has come in from so I told you my Ontario wave. So let's say, it's come from San Diego, cargo's flown into Ontario, gone over to Denver, and then hubbed over to Rockford. That's basically what's happened there. And where is it? Here it is. And then 24 of that moved on from Rockford onto somewhere else at that hub. So every single route connects to each other. And I think that's going to be part of the success of this airline going forward. So what I'm going to be doing over the next week, I have got, courtesy of funds from British Atlantic Airways, I've got about 10 737s to be delivered over the next week. I've got some Dash 8s to schedule. And what I'm going to do, as you did see, there is sort of one in, I would say, 6, 1 in 7 flights that aren't working, they're not filling up. So I'm going to go through every hub, every route that I've got, and make sure that any route that's not working, I either drop it, change it, lower the prices, find out why it's not working. Maybe I've accidentally, done it a bit, the timings aren't right, or maybe I've done East Coast to East Coast, so it's not connecting properly. Work out why they're not working, fix them. Excuse me. And then hopefully, my facts and figures here. So I'm currently at 80% load factor. I want to get this up to 90% load factor. And I'll only expand with the new delivered 737s as well. I will be looking to make another base, which could be, my next base could be Miami. Because on this server, Miami is fairly empty. It's got 50% slots. There's no cargo airline hubbing there. I could do my sort of all these Caribbean and Mexico flights into there, then up into America. I could use it as my South American hub. Fly, from Brazil into Miami, get a 767 base there. That sort of thing is what I'm thinking. Remember, this airline isn't just going to be USA based; it's going to be global. So eventually, I will venture out into Europe and the Middle East and all that. It's going to be a FedEx. It's going to be a DHL. It's going to be all over the world. You're going to see our planes in every continent. But we have to start somewhere, obviously. So at the moment, we've made 5.5 million. Take this with a pinch of salt because there's been no salaries and no leasing this week yet. So this is, I think it's about 5 million or just under 5 million. So I'm probably actually only on about 750,000 profit. But for a newly formed cargo airline in its first week, it's unbelievable. The success that I've had so far with this. And hopefully this continues. It's given me such enjoyment to be doing this, and my Rockford hub has given me so much pleasure in it becoming sort of organically made. It will become quite a big hub for me. I'm very happy with it. So yeah, hopefully that's been informative. Hopefully you've enjoyed the episode. I hope you're as excited as I am for my new cargo airline. If you are in the server, drop me a message. We can have a chat about things, about interlining or anything. I am on Discord as well. So yeah, pleasure again. Thank you again for watching. If you have, watched the whole way, please do subscribe and like the video. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.